My sister opened the door of the house I bought my parents, already wearing Mom's anniversary pearls. "Oh, you're back." I asked where Mom was. She pointed down the basement stairs and smiled the way you smile at someone who's already lost. "That's where she sleeps now. The upstairs rooms are for people who pay. Even Mom pays, 500 a month. Keeps her from thinking she still belongs up here." I looked at the pearls. I looked at the stranger's shoes on the stairs I'd carpeted for my mother's knees, and I smiled back. "You just made this very easy." By 9 p.m., two men were knocking on the front door. My sister answered like the house was hers. She had no idea whose name had been on it the entire time. "My name is Isabella Bird, and I'm 35 years old." Before we go any further, please take a moment to hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. And drop a comment below. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there right now? I'd love to know. Now I need to go back 6 years. In December of 2019, I bought a house at 6-12 Marigold Court in Westerville, Ohio. 3 bedrooms upstairs, 1 down, a kitchen with an east-facing window, and a maple tree in the front yard that the seller apologized for, like shade was a defect. It cost $214,000. I put $60,000 down. 7 years of working cruise ship kitchens, 7 years of no rent, no car, no vacations, just galley shifts and a savings account. The rest was a mortgage in my name, $1,180 a month. I didn't buy it for me. I bought it for my parents, who had rented their entire lives. My dad, Edward Bird, ran a lathe for 39 years. My mom, Carol, was a seamstress, the kind of woman whose hems outlived the marriages of the brides she sewed for. They raised 2 daughters in rented duplexes with landlords who painted over mold, and they never once complained where we could hear it. On Christmas morning, I handed them a key tied with red ribbon. Dad held it like it might go off in his palm. "Bella," he said, "people like us don't own things like this." "We do now, Dad. I want to be honest about something, because this story doesn't work if I'm not." I signed the papers alone. The deed was in my name, the mortgage was in my name, and I never sat my family down and explained that. My parents needed a home, not a lecture about paperwork. Mom cried at the kitchen counter. Dad walked the fence line twice like he was checking a machine for tolerances. That was enough for me. Before they moved in, I had 2 things done. I painted the big east bedroom myself, soft yellow, because Mom drinks her tea at sunrise. And I had the staircase carpeted, good thick pile, because her knees were already going and I'd watched her wince on bare wood stairs for 20 years. I put her Singer sewing machine by the east window in that bedroom. "A seamstress needs real light," I told her. She touched the machine like it was a person. 3 months later, in March of 2020, I took a job as a sous chef at Fernhill Lodge in Queenstown, New Zealand. It was the kind of offer you get once. I set everything on autopay before I flew out. Mortgage, property taxes through escrow, insurance, gas, electric, water. Every bill, every month, from my account, on time. I canceled my American cell number, the old 614 one, because paying for a deadline felt wasteful. I got a New Zealand number and put everything on video calls. Every bill on autopay, every month, without fail. I mistook that for presents. It would take me 6 years to learn the difference. The night before my flight, Dad called. We talked about the tomato bed he was planning. Then right before we hung up, he said something I filed away as a father being a father. "Keep an eye on your sister, Bella. Vanessa counts other people's plates." I laughed. I actually laughed. I never saw him again. In August of 2021, my father bent over that tomato bed, put his hand on his chest, and was gone before the ambulance turned onto Marigold Court. He was 67. New Zealand's borders were sealed shut that year. You couldn't get a quarantine slot for love or money, and grief doesn't issue visas. So I buried my father through a 13-inch laptop screen at 4 in the morning, Queenstown time, alone in a staff apartment that smelled like other people's cooking. The connection dropped twice during the eulogy. I never got those minutes back. On that little screen, I watched my sister stand beside my mother at the graveside, hand on her shoulder, steady as a fence post. And God help me, I was grateful to her. I remember thinking, at least Vanessa is there. At least Mom isn't alone. Vanessa was 34 then, freshly divorced from Keith Dowling that spring, working the front desk at a dental office. In September of 2021, 1 week after the memorial dinner, she rolled 2 suitcases into the house on Marigold Court. Just temporary, she told me on the phone, so Mom's not rattling around alone. I exhaled for the first time in a month. I sent extra money home that Christmas. And when I talked about flying back, Vanessa talked me out of it, gently, reasonably, every single time. Don't waste $2 grand on a flight, Bella. Mom's fine. She'd rather you save it. I believed her, because believing her was convenient for both of us. I didn't come home in 2021. Or 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. Every year had a reason that sounded responsible. A promotion to executive chef, a contract clause, a busy season. And on every video call, Mom sat in the same corner of the kitchen, beige wall behind her, mug of tea in her hands, telling me she was fine, telling me not to spend the money, telling me she was proud of me. The same corner, every call, for 4 years. I thought it was her favorite spot. By April of 2026, my contract at Fernhill had wrapped, and I decided I was done announcing myself. I wanted to knock on that door and watch my mother's face do the thing it did on Christmas morning 2019. I packed a length of blue silk for her birthday. You give a seamstress fabric, not flowers. And the old key with the red ribbon, which I'd carried across the world and back for 6 years like a promise. 26 hours. Queenstown to Auckland, Auckland to San Francisco to Columbus. I landed at John Glenn just after 2 on a Thursday afternoon, the 16th of April, and rode a rideshare 25 minutes north with my heart doing something ridiculous. The plan was simple. Knock. Watch her face. Cook her dinner in her own kitchen. The first thing I noticed was the cars. 3 of them in the driveway and along the curb. None of them Mom's old Buick. None of them familiar. The second thing was a glint of metal on the side door where there had never been metal. A keypad, the kind you punch a code into. It chirped as I walked up the path. A low, dying battery chirp, every 30 seconds, like a smoke alarm begging for attention that nobody was giving it. I slid my key into the front door lock. It didn't turn. I stood on my own porch, holding a key to a lock that no longer existed, listening to that keypad chirp, and I rang the doorbell of the house I had been paying for, to the day, for 76 consecutive months. Heels on hardwood. The door opened, and there was Vanessa, 39 now, hair done, lipstick done, and in her ears, my mother's pearls, the anniversary pearls. Dad gave them to Mom for their 30th, in 2014, and I had never once seen them off my mother's ears on a holiday. "Oh," Vanessa said, "you're back." Not a hug, not a "how was the flight?" She looked at my suitcase the way you look at weather. "How long are you staying?" "Where's Mom?" She pointed. Down. Toward the basement door off the kitchen hallway, and she smiled. This particular smile she has, unhurried, almost kind, the smile you give someone who's already lost. "That's where she sleeps now. The upstairs rooms are for people who pay." A little shrug, pearls swaying. "Even Mom pays, 500 a month, keeps her from thinking she still belongs up here." There are moments when your whole body goes quiet. Chefs know it. The second the fryer catches, before anyone moves, when the room turns to glass. I stood in that glass moment and I looked at the pearls. I looked past her shoulder at the staircase, my staircase, the one I'd carpeted for my mother's knees, and at the pair of strangers' work boots sitting on the third step. And I smiled back. "You just made this very easy." "Made what easy?" She laughed. She actually laughed, the same way I'd laughed at Dad on the phone 6 years ago. "You'll see." She checked her phone, said she had a dinner thing, told me not to rearrange anything, and clicked off down the hall to get ready. Just like that. 6 years, and she left me standing in the entryway like a delivery. I set my suitcase down and I walked my house. A chef reads a kitchen the way a mother reads a cough. This kitchen had been feeding strangers for years, and none of them were family. On the fridge, where Mom's church calendar used to hang, there was a laminated schedule: kitchen hours, quiet hours, laundry days, written for guests. On the console table by the door sat a stack of envelopes, rubber-banded, labeled in Vanessa's handwriting. Front, April. Blue, April. Office, April. Upstairs, every bedroom door had a keypad lock. The big east bedroom, the one I painted yellow, the one with the real light, had a man's coat hooked over the door and a smell of drugstore aftershave. The second bedroom, the blue one, had kitchen clogs by the door and the unmistakable ghost of fryer oil. I know that smell the way sailors know rain. The third, Dad's old office, had a stethoscope hanging off the doorknob and hospital scrubs folded on a chair. The family photos that used to march up the stairwell wall were gone. I found them stacked on one shelf in the hallway, and my parents' wedding photo was lying face down. And in the kitchen, on its hook above the stove, exactly where I'd left it in 2020, hung my father's cast iron skillet. Bone dry, dull with dust. Nobody had cooked in it since the man who seasoned it died. That's when I heard it. Faint, through the floor. The whir of a sewing machine. 3 seconds, then silence. The basement door had a barrel bolt on it. New brass, bright against old paint, mounted on the outside. I slid it back and went down. The basement stairs are the only stairs in that house I never carpeted, because nobody was ever supposed to live down there. Bare wood, then bare concrete, a bulb on a string. In the back corner, under the slope of the staircase, was a folding cot. It was made with hospital corners, topped with a quilt I recognized in my bones. Patchwork, sewn from scrap fabric, my mother's stitching. A space heater, a lamp, cardboard boxes stacked and labeled in careful block letters. Carol, kitchen. Carol, books. Carol, winter. And in the darkest corner, facing the wall, her Singer sewing machine. My mother was sitting on the edge of the cot with her hands in her lap. She's 65, her hair's gone fully silver. When she saw me, she made a sound I've never heard from her before or since, and then, I want you to hear this part clearly. The very first thing my mother did, before hello, before tears, was scramble to her feet and start apologizing. Bella, oh no, honey, it's a mess down here. Let me just. She was moving boxes, straightening the quilt. Her knees buckled a little when she stood and she caught the stair rail. My mother apologized to me. For the basement. In my house. I crossed the concrete and held her, and she was smaller than I remembered. And over her shoulder, on a plastic shelf, I saw a spiral notebook with a ballpoint pen clipped to the cover. She followed my eyes, and she shifted, casually, the way you'd shift to block a draft, until her body was between me and that notebook. I didn't ask. Not yet. In a kitchen, you taste everything before you season anything. I brought her upstairs. I took Dad's skillet down off its hook, washed 6 years of dust out of it, and cooked my mother dinner. Nothing fancy, eggs and potatoes and the good butter, the first meal that Pan had made since 2021. She ate like it was a restaurant. She told me about the neighbor's grandkids. She glowed. And then, without thinking, she got up and started cleaning. Not clearing, cleaning. She wiped the counter once, twice, a third time, checked the stovetop from an angle for grease shadow. Vanessa likes it spotless for the guests, she said. Guests. In my mother's mouth, the word sounded like furniture, like something that had always been there. Later, she said she needed a sweater and went down to the basement. I gave it a few minutes and followed, quiet on those bare stairs, and stopped halfway. She was sitting on the cot in the lamplight with the notebook open on her knee, pen moving, careful as a bookkeeper. It was April 16th. Whatever my mother was recording, she was recording it 2 weeks early. I came down the rest of the way and sat beside her on the cot, and I asked, as gently as I know how, what she was writing. She hesitated. Then she did the bravest small thing. She handed it to me. 48 entries, 1 per line. Each one dated the first of the month, starting May 2022. Each one the same, $500, house. Written in the upright, even hand of a seamstress who has never in her life owed anyone a dime past due. She'd been penciling in the next one, May 1st, 2026, in advance. So I'm never short for anyone, she said. 48 entries, $24,000. Vanessa had told me at the door that Mom paid. She'd said it like a joke, like a policy. What she hadn't told me was that my mother kept receipts on her own exploitation, 4 years of them, in perfect handwriting, with pride. Mom, I kept my voice level. Contributing to what exactly? And she explained it to me the way you explain something you've rehearsed by believing it. That the house still had a loan on it. Bella, could only cover part of it from overseas. Vanessa carried the rest. The renters upstairs helped carry the rest. So Mom's 500 was the least she could do. It used to be 400, but it went up in 2024 when the property taxes went up. The property taxes, which come out of my escrow, which I have paid, invisibly, automatically, every month since January 2020. Mom, who told you the house still has a loan I can't cover? Well, Vanessa handles all the paperwork, honey. There it was. All the paperwork. Every fact my mother knew about her own home had come through one person, and every one of those facts fit together perfectly, the way only manufactured things do. I had my banking app open in my pocket. 76 mortgage payments, my name on every one. I could have shown her right then. My thumb was on the screen. I locked the phone. Because here's what I understood, sitting on that cot. If I detonated the truth that night, the person buried in the rubble would be my mother. She had organized 4 years of her life around a story. You don't rip a story like that out of a 65-year-old woman at 9 at night and call it a rescue. I needed to know how deep this went first. So instead I asked about the routine, and she told me, and this is the part I have trouble saying out loud even now. On the first of every month, my mother walks to the bank branch on Schrock Road. If the first falls on a Sunday, she goes the Friday before, so she's never late. She withdraws $500 in cash. She walks home. She hands it to Vanessa at the kitchen table, the table I bought. And Vanessa says thank you, Mom, and puts it in an envelope. 4 years, my mother said, and I was never late once. She said it with pride. That was the part that broke me. Not the money. The pride. They had taken my mother's best quality, that she pays what she owes, to the day, to the dollar, and turned it into the leash. I asked about the people upstairs. And listen, she spoke kindly about every single one of them. Douglas in the front room. A gentleman, he fixed the stair rail for me 2 winters ago, wouldn't take a thing for it. Cole in the blue room. A cook, like you, honey, works too hard. Dana in Dad's office. She does nights at the emergency room. I keep the kettle quiet in the mornings. Mom made them breakfast on weekends. Vanessa called it part of the service. My mother spoke kindly of every stranger sleeping above her head. Not one sour word. My family raised her better than it treated her. What do they think you are, Mom, in this house? She went quiet. Her thumb turned her wedding ring around and around. She didn't know. It had never occurred to her that she'd been explained to them. By then it was almost 9. Mom went down to bed. I watched her take those bare stairs one at a time, hand hard on the rail Douglas fixed. And I sat alone at the kitchen table with her notebook and a rage that had stopped being hot hours ago. Cold rage is more useful. It measures things. Down the hall, Vanessa was doing her makeup with the door open, dressed for a late dinner. The side door keypad chirped its dying chirp. And then, a knock at the front door. 2 shapes through the frosted glass. One broad, middle-aged. One narrow, younger, and even through a shut door I'd swear I smelled fryer oil. The knock was polite and tired. The knock of men who'd knocked 1,000 times and never once wondered whose door it was. Vanessa clicked past me down the hall and answered it like the house was hers. Chin up, hostess voice on. Keypad battery's dead again, sorry guys. I'll swap it tomorrow. Come in, come in. She waved them through, grabbed her bag, told no one in particular she'd be back late, and was gone. Taillights down Marigold Court. She welcomed her tenants, in my house. And then she left me alone with 2 men who had spent years paying rent to a woman who didn't own a single brick of the place. The broad one stopped when he saw me at the table. 50-something, machine shop hands, tired eyes that did the math fast. Ma'am, didn't know anyone. Sorry, we usually come through the side. You're fine, I said. I'm Isabella Bird, Carol's daughter. Everything in his face rearranged. The daughter from overseas? Vanessa said. He stopped himself. Sir, finish the sentence. He looked at the younger one, Cole, the cook, still in his kitchen clogs. And then he sat down when I gestured, careful, like the chair might be a trick. His name was Douglas Reiner. He ran a CNC machine across town, worked noon to 8:30. He'd rented the front room for 4 years, longest of anyone. And then he finished the sentence, because he was a decent man and decent men finish sentences. Vanessa had told them her mother had dementia, that the old woman wandered at night, that the basement was for her own safety, close to the ground, away from the stairs, and that the other daughter, me, was off in some other country, and sent what she could when she remembered. I want to tell you I stayed calm because I'm disciplined. The truth is I stayed calm because there was too much to be angry at all at once, and the body just cues it. My mother, I said, does not have dementia. She could hem a suit for a funeral in an afternoon and remember every measurement without writing one down. And I'd like to ask you something, and I want you to know none of this is your doing. How do you pay your rent? He took out his phone. Venmo. 51 payments, second of every month, $950, each one to the same account. V. Bird, front room. I looked at that neat green column for a long time. Then I told them the only things I was willing to tell them that night. I'm Carol's daughter. My mother's mind is a clean, sharp room, and some things about this house were going to be clarified within the week. I asked them to keep this conversation at the table. Douglas studied me, a machinist's look, checking a part against a spec, and nodded once. Vanessa came home at 10:30 to find her little sister sitting at the kitchen table with 2 of her tenants and a closed spiral notebook. What is this? Dinner conversation, I said. You should change the keypad battery. People had to use the front door. For 1 second, something flickered behind her eyes. Then the smile came back, and she said goodnight to her guests by name, warmly, like a concierge, and went to bed. Through the wall that night I heard her on the phone, voice low and flat. I caught one sentence. Then let her dig. There's nothing to dig. She was right about one thing. I wasn't going to dig. Digging is loud. I was going to do what you do in a kitchen when a sauce is lying to you. Taste, confirm, taste again, and say nothing until you're sure. The next morning, Friday, I crossed the street with a plate of banana bread for Rosemary Ellert, who has lived opposite that house for 30 years and watered her hostas through every hour of the last 4. Rosemary hugged me, scolded me for being skinny, and then, 3 minutes in, unprompted, handed me a knife she didn't know was a knife. Your sister's done a wonderful job with the house. Young woman like that, a homeowner, running the whole thing herself. Your parents raised her right. A homeowner, running the whole thing herself. I kept my face pleasant and let her talk, and Rosemary talks. She remembered the exact month the bed went down to the basement, April of 2022, because Vanessa asked Rosemary's late husband to help carry it, and told him the doctor said Carol needed to avoid stairs. The doctor said she should avoid stairs. I looked at the little basement window at our feet, the only stairs my mother has climbed every single day for 4 years, steep, bare, uncarpeted, are the ones that doctor's advice sent her down. That's the thing about my sister's lies I need you to understand. They weren't sloppy. Each audience got a custom version. The tenants got dementia. The neighbors got doctor's orders. My mother got a mortgage that didn't exist. And I got a beige corner of a kitchen, 4 years running. Then Rosemary added one more thing, cheerful as a bake sale. And good for her, you know. I hear the house goes to her eventually, for all the caretaking. You hear that from? Oh, everybody's heard that, dear. Everybody's heard that. My sister hadn't just moved into a house. She'd moved into a story, and she'd been renovating the story for 4 years, and the final room of it was the deed itself. That afternoon I took Mom to the bank, told her we should check her retirement account, which was even true. We printed statements. There it was in gray and white, a $500 cash withdrawal on the first of every month, or the Friday before, when the first fell on a weekend, 48 times, matching her notebook line for line, month for month, not one missing. Of course it matched. My mother's whole life balances to the penny. That was exactly what my sister was counting on. The account itself told the rest. 4 years of erosion. And one line that I will not forgive in this lifetime. Last November, the month her knee got bad, there's no pharmacy charge for the prescription anti-inflammatory her doctor had recommended. The good one, the $70 one. She skipped it. The renters were late that month, she told me in the car, apologizing for it, and Vanessa said the house was tight. The house was tight. That same week, my sister posted photos from a girls' weekend in Nashville. Has anything like this ever happened in your family? Where you found out someone you love had been suffering in silence for a reason that turned out not to be real? Tell me in the comments. I read them. And honestly, this next part is why I ask. Because in the car, on Schrock Road, I asked my mother the question that had been sitting in my chest since the basement. Mom, in 2022, why did you stop texting me? Even just the little things. You could have used any number, any app. Why'd you go quiet? Her hands tightened on the strap of her purse, knuckles white, and she looked out the window and said, I didn't want to be a bother, honey. That night, Saturday night, after dinner, she came to me. I was making up my bed on the living room couch. Yes, the couch. There are 4 bedrooms in that house, and the owner's daughter slept on the couch, and I chose it because I wasn't taking a bed until my mother had hers back. Mom sat down next to me, folded her hands, and said very quietly, I'm not angry with you, Bella. I want you to know that. I understood. You were right. I shouldn't be something you have to carry. The room tilted. Right about what, Mom? When did I ever say that? And my mother opened her purse and took out a piece of paper folded in quarters, and the creases had been opened and refolded so many times over 4 years that they'd gone soft as cloth. She had been carrying her heartbreak in her wallet since 2022. I unfolded it. It was a printout of a text conversation. Gray bubbles, blue bubbles, a screenshot, printed on regular paper. At the top, a phone number I knew better than my own birthday. My old 614 number. The date on the messages, July 2022. And in the blue bubble, the sender. Me, supposedly, writing to Vanessa. I'm exhausted, Ness. I can't carry Mom too. Please don't tell her I said that. Mom watched my face. Vanessa didn't want to show me, she said softly. I made her. I kept asking why you didn't want me to visit, and she said you'd made her promise not to tell me. She only showed me so I'd stop pushing to fly over and bother you. A small, terrible smile. She protected you, honey. Don't be mad at her for that. She protected you. I sat with that piece of paper in my hands, and I did the hardest cooking of my life. I kept my face at a simmer while everything underneath was a grease fire. Because my mother wasn't watching the paper. She was watching me, measuring how bad this was going to be. And if I screamed, she'd spend the next decade managing my feelings instead of having her own. Mom, I said, look at the number. That's your number, sweetheart. It was. I canceled it in March of 2020, before I flew out. It hasn't existed for 6 years. I pulled up my email, scrolled to 2020, and turned the screen to her. The carrier's goodbye notice. Account closed. March 2020. This conversation is dated July 2022. Mom, that number was dead for 2 years and 3 months before this message was supposedly sent from it. I have never written you, or her, or anyone, one word of this. Not one word. She read the email 3 times. Then she read the printout again, like it might behave differently under supervision. And then my mother, the sharpest woman I know, asked the one question that had no soft answer. Then why didn't you come home, Bella? So I told her the truth, without a lawyer's polish, because she'd earned it. The borders, first. That part was real. I couldn't have gotten home for Dad's funeral if I'd sold everything I owned. But after? After was on me. Sending money was easier than calling. Calling was easier than flying. I had built a machine that loved my family automatically, so I wouldn't have to do it in person. And every year the machine ran, I got to feel finished. I paid every bill on this house for 76 months, Mom. And I wasn't here. Both of those are true. I'm not going to pretend the second one away. And then my mother did something that leveled me. She confessed back. I told you not to come, she said. Every call. Don't waste the money. Don't use your vacation. I said it because her voice caught on the paper in her lap. Because I believed this. I thought if I kept you away, I was helping you. We sat there, two women who had spent 4 years protecting each other from a danger that one person in this family had manufactured. We were both guilty of distance, only one person built it. She was quiet for a while, then almost to herself. July of 2022. That's when she gave me the new phone. What new phone? That summer, Vanessa had gifted Mom a new smartphone, set it all up herself, transferred everything over. Except, Mom realized now, saying it out loud for the first time, my New Zealand number had never made it into the new contacts. Every video call since had come through Vanessa's phone first. Bella's calling Mom here, and the phone handed over in the kitchen in that same beige corner. Every call I'd made home for 4 years had passed through my sister's hands before it reached my mother's. I thought I'd been talking to my mother. I'd been talking to a stage-managed version of her, on a set, one camera angle, no wide shots. Headlights swept the window. Vanessa, home early. And I watched 4 years of training happen in 2 seconds. My mother folded the printout, slid it into her purse, and composed her face, all in one smooth motion, before the key hit the door. Vanessa came in sweet that night. That's how I knew she'd been thinking. She poured wine, told childhood stories, laughed at the right places, and then she laid it out, warm as fresh bread. Sunday was Mom's birthday, 66, and she wanted to do it big this year. Family only. And Bella, stay through it at least? I'll have Dana shift some things around. You can have the office room after the weekend. Generous. Hostess to the end. Family only, I agreed. For once, my sister and I wanted exactly the same guest list. Later, through the screen door, I heard her on the porch with our Aunt Judith, Mom's younger sister, who'd been between places in one of the upstairs rooms since last August. Vanessa's voice, low, planning. And honestly, at the birthday I want to finally sit Mom down about the paperwork. She's 66, Ness. It's time the house stuff was in order. The paperwork. She was going to make her move on the deed at my mother's birthday dinner. Good, I thought. I have paperwork too. Sunday was 2 days away, and here's what I did with them, and notice what's not on the list. No lawyers, no courthouse, no scene. Monday could have locksmiths. Sunday needed something better than locks. Saturday morning, I went to the Westerville Public Library and used the 10-cent a page printer. The deed to 6-12 Marigold Court, December 2019, one name on it. 76 consecutive mortgage statements, January 2020 through April 2026. Autopay, my account, my name, including August 2021, the month we buried my father, because grief doesn't pause a bank. The carrier email, March 2020. A photo of Mom's bank statements beside her notebook. All of it into a navy blue folder. No lawyers, no court, just 76 bank statements and a 10-cent printer. The truth is cheap. Lies are what cost this family a fortune. I printed a second copy of everything. You'll see why. That afternoon, I met Douglas Rayner at a coffee place near his machine shop. I put the deed on the table and turned it to face him. He read it the way he probably reads a blueprint, twice, corner to corner, and then he sat back and rubbed his jaw. 4 years, he said. I paid rent to a woman standing in someone else's doorway. He looked up. And the mother, the dementia. Sharp as your best tool, she hemmed a wedding dress in March. Douglas was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke again his voice had gravel in it. She fixed my collar once, saw a button hanging by a thread when I was headed out and just fixed it. Woman living on a cot fixed my collar. He shook his head slowly. I should have knocked on that basement door 2 years ago. You're going to get your chance to knock. Sunday, 1 o'clock, come to the front door. Bring your phone with the payment history. You don't have to perform anything. If you're asked a question, tell the truth in front of everyone. That's all. That's all? That's everything, Douglas. She's never once had to say her lies in a room where all the audiences could hear each other. Sunday, the audiences meet. He nodded once, machinist final. 1 o'clock. There was a third piece, and it wasn't mine to arrange. Saturday evening, I sat with Mom in the basement, next to the singer, and I didn't script her, and I didn't coach her, because the whole point, the entire point, was that nobody got to hold my mother's pen anymore. I just asked what she wanted tomorrow to be. She could sit through the birthday and let me handle everything after, privately, and no one would blame her. Or, she looked at her notebook for a long time. Then she said, I have one question I'd like to ask your sister myself. Just one. Then it's yours, Mom. You've paid for it 48 times. She didn't tell me the question. I didn't ask. Some debts you let people collect in person. That night I baked Mom's birthday cake from scratch in Dad's skillet, a chef's ritual, hands busy the night before service. Vanessa drifted through the kitchen, wine glass in hand, and wrinkled her nose at the batter. I'm ordering from the bakery tomorrow, you know. It should look like a party. People will remember this party for a long time, I said. Don't worry. For once in 4 years, I told my sister the complete truth. Here's a question before we get there, and I actually want your answer. If it were your family, do you handle it quietly, behind closed doors, protect the reputations, keep the peace? Or does it happen in front of everyone, at the table, where the story got told? Put your answer in the comments. Then keep listening, because here's what happened at that table. Sunday, April 19th, my mother's 66th birthday. Vanessa produced the party like a woman running for office. Bakery cake, white frosting. A 3 generations photo on the porch that was really 2 generations, and Aunt Judith. Around the table, Mom at the side, not the head, the side. The head seat had become Vanessa's, and I want you to notice that, because I did. Judith. Vanessa's boyfriend, Shane Corbin, a big friendly guy who sells car insurance and clearly adored her. And Rosemary from across the street, invited, I suspect, because parties photograph better with elders in them. Vanessa raised her glass. 5 years, she said, voice catching in exactly the right place. I've kept this roof over Mom's head. Happy birthday, Mama. You'll never be alone as long as I'm here. Under the table, my mother's hand found mine. And then Vanessa set down her glass and pivoted, smooth as an agenda item. And actually, since it's all of us, Mom, you're 66 now, and I think it's time we finally got the house paperwork in order. I picked up the forms for a transfer on death. It's very simple, we can… I tapped my spoon against my glass gently. Ting. Before the paperwork, I said, I have a birthday present for Mom. It's also paperwork. But first, Ness, remind me, what's the payment on this house? Monthly. You handle all of it, right? A beat, a flicker, then smooth. Around 2,000, with everything. Why? Around 2,000. The real number is 1180, and it has been since January 2020, and she didn't know it, because she has never once seen a mortgage statement for this house, because they all come to me. I didn't correct her. I reached into my bag and set my mother's spiral notebook on the tablecloth, in the middle of everything, next to the bakery cake. Then help me with the math. Mom's 500 a month, 48 months of it, it's all in here, in her handwriting. That went toward the around 2,000? The table went still. Judith's eyes landed on the notebook and stayed there. A half-second too long, I'd think later, for someone seeing it for the first time. Vanessa's chin came up. Mom insists on contributing. It makes her feel useful. Tell them, Mom. Everyone looked at my mother. My mother looked at the notebook, 48 entries in her own hand, and said nothing at all. Silence from Carol Bird was an answer. Vanessa heard it, and something under her composure shifted its weight. Okay, what is this, Bella? You disappear for 6 years and fly home to audit me? She looked around this table, recruiting. I'm the one who stayed. Does anyone here understand what 5 years of caretaking? I opened the navy folder and set the first stack beside the notebook. 76 pages. Mortgage statements. Every month, January 2020 through this month, autopay. I turned the top page so it faced the table. Read the account holder's name out loud, Ness. She didn't. Shane did, leaning in, brow furrowing. Isabella Bird. Every payment, 76 of them, including August 2021. I let that month sit on the table where everyone could see it. There is no around 2000. There is no loan Mom needed to help carry. There was never a rest of it, Vanessa. There was never anything for anyone to carry, except Mom, down those basement stairs. Rosemary's hand went to her mouth. Judith had gone the color of the frosting. And here is where my sister showed me she was never stupid. Cruel is different from stupid. She stood up, planted her fingertips on the table, and made the best argument she had. And I want you to hear it fairly, because half of you have heard some version of it in your own families. Fine. You paid, with a bank transfer, from Paradise. Her voice didn't crack. It hardened. You know what I paid with? 5 years of my life. Who drove Mom to every appointment? Who was standing in this house the day Dad died on the lawn? Who stayed? You bought a house and disappeared, Bella. You're a landlord. You were never family. So yes, the renters, Mom's contribution, all of it. Call it rent, call it whatever helps you sleep on your couch. I earned every dollar. For 3 seconds, nobody breathed. Because the worst lies are wrapped around a splinter of truth, and the splinter was mine. I had disappeared. That part was real, and everyone at the table knew it. And she watched me absorb it with the beginning of a comeback smile. I didn't argue. I took out a piece of paper folded in quarters, soft as cloth at the creases, and unfolded it, and laid it down facing her. Then explain this, Ness, since you earned everything. This is a text conversation between you and me. July 2022. Where I tell you I'm exhausted, and I can't carry Mom too, and I beg you not to tell her. I let the table read it. Shane's fork stopped moving. Mom has carried this in her purse for 4 years. It's why she stopped asking to visit me. It's why she moved onto a cot without a fight, so she wouldn't be a burden to the daughter who said this. I never… That's… Vanessa's eyes flicked across it. You did send that. I showed her because she wouldn't stop pushing. The number, Vanessa. I set the carrier email beside it. That phone number was disconnected in March of 2020. Here's the closure notice. The conversation you printed is dated 27 months after the number stopped existing. You built it from the old contact card in your phone. You never checked. That's the whole story of you in this house, if you think about it. You never checked anything. Explain the miracle, Vanessa. The room is listening. She looked at the printout. At the email. At the printout. Her mouth opened, and what came out was a downgrade. Someone must have… Phones get… This is insane. And for the first time in 4 years, my sister stood in front of an audience with no prepared version. And at 1 o'clock exactly, someone knocked on the front door. Vanessa flinched like it was thunder. I went and opened it, and Douglas Reiner stepped in, ball cap in his hands, and said, "Happy birthday, Mrs. Bird," to my mother, gently, before he said anything else. Then he set 2 things on the table, his room key, and his phone, screen up, the green column glowing. 51 payments, V. Bird, front room. 4 years I've rented upstairs, he said to the table, plain as a work order. $9.50 a month to her. A nod at Vanessa. She told me and the others that her mother had dementia, that the basement was for the lady's own safety. He turned to Mom, and his voice went rough. "Ma'am, I'm sorry. I should have knocked on that door 2 years ago. There's nothing wrong with your mind, and there never was. You fixed my collar." "Dementia!" Rosemary's voice cracked across the table like a dropped plate. "She told my Gerald the doctor said no stairs. She told me she owned this house. She told half the street the house was coming to her." And that was the sound of the walls coming down. Not one document, not one gotcha, but every audience hearing every other audience's version for the first time, in one room, over birthday cake. The tenant's story met the neighbor's story, met the mother's story, met the bank's story, and not one of them matched. And the only person all of those stories had in common was standing at the head of the table she'd assigned herself, holding the back of her chair. "You're all…" Vanessa started, and looked around for a face on her side. Shane was staring at her like a man rereading a contract. Judith was studying her plate. And then my mother stood up. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. She smoothed the front of her blouse the way she does before pinning a hem, and she looked at her firstborn, and she asked her one question. The one she'd paid for. "Vanessa, Did your sister ever, even once in 6 years, say I was a burden to her? Yes or no? Vanessa opened her mouth, looked for a door. There was no door. The silence stretched until it hummed. No. My mother nodded, once, like a measurement confirmed. Then everything else you have to say, I've already heard. For 4 years. She held out her hand, palm up, and didn't say the next part in words. She just waited, eyes on the pearls. Vanessa's hands went to her ears. It took her a moment. Her fingers weren't steady. She laid the pearls in my mother's palm, Dad's 30th anniversary pearls, and Mom closed her hand around them. I'd like you to pack a bag tonight, Mom said. You can arrange the rest with your sister. Get your things out of your father's. She stopped, corrected herself, in front of everyone, steady and clear. Out of my daughter's house. My daughter's house. First time she'd ever said it out loud. She said it like a woman signing her own name. Vanessa left that night with 2 suitcases and Shane driving. Shane, who carried her boxes to the car with the face of a man doing inventory on 2 years of his own memories. At the door, she turned around one last time, and what she chose to say, after everything, was, "You'll regret humiliating me in front of people." "Nobody humiliated you, Ness," I said. "We just introduced your stories to each other." The door closed, and in the quiet that followed, I caught the tail end of something I'd been half watching all afternoon. Judith, our aunt, 63 years old, 8 months a guest in a free room upstairs, rinsing dishes with tremendous concentration, the way people do when they're hoping the moment will pass over them like weather. It didn't pass. Monday, a locksmith changed every lock in the house. After Vanessa was gone, everything by appointment, her remaining boxes scheduled for pickup through the end of the month. I'm telling you that because quiet justice still gets done correctly. When she came for the boxes on Wednesday, I stood on the porch while she loaded her car, and when the glove compartment fell open, something small rolled against the door and caught the light. A single pearl earring. The mate to a pair Mom thought she'd lost years ago. It had been riding around in my sister's glove box like loose change. I didn't say anything. I just held out my hand, the way Mom had. She dropped it in and didn't meet my eyes. That left Judith. Thursday evening, Judith made tea for me and Mom, which should have been my first clue, because Judith makes tea the way other people draft opening statements. She wanted to say, and she said it in a voice soaked in sorrow, that she'd been sick about all of it. Just sick. She'd had no idea how bad things were, and with the room situation changing, she just needed a little time to find a place. Family helps family, and she'd always felt so terrible seeing Carol down there, in fact. And here she reached for credibility and grabbed a live wire instead. I saw the notebook back in February, when I was folding the wash for you, honey, and my heart just broke. She stopped, but some sentences only need to start. February. She saw the notebook in February. She'd held 48 entries of her own sister's exploitation in her hands, understood exactly what they were, and put them back in the laundry, and went upstairs to her free room, and said nothing for 2 more months. And I remembered something else from years of Christmas calls. Judith, every December, sweetly asking me how things were over there, when I might visit, was I doing all right? And then, I'd learned this week from Rosemary, repeating at church that poor Carol's youngest had run off overseas and left her. I opened my mouth, and my mother put her hand on my arm. This one was hers. Mom set down her teacup. She looked at her little sister for a long, level moment, the look she gives a seam that someone else has tried to hide bad work inside. And then she rendered her verdict, and it was better than anything I would have said, because it had mercy in it, and the mercy had edges. You'll stay until the end of May, 6 weeks. I don't put 63-year-old women on the street. That's the difference between me and what's been done in this house. Judith started to speak. Mom lifted one finger, seamstress stern, and the room obeyed it. From this week, you'll pay for that room, the going rate, to Bella, since it's her house. Or you'll find your place sooner. And Judith, this Sunday, at church, you're going to correct the story about my daughter. To every person you told it to, by name. Judith's teacup clinked down. Carol, you watched me carry it, Junebug. The old childhood nickname, and it landed like a slap and an embrace at once. For 2 months you knew and you watched. Silence has a rent too. Yours just came due. Sunday, April 26th, at Grace Methodist, my aunt stood at coffee hour and corrected the record person by person. Rosemary, who was there, reported it to me over the fence with deep satisfaction and one editorial note. She teared up doing it. Some of it was even real. And then, in the same week, the smaller, better story began. The one nobody claps for. The one that's actually the point. Because here's the thing about the people upstairs. They'd been lied to as thoroughly as anyone. Dana, the ER tech renting Dad's old office, heard the whole account on Monday, sat with it through a night shift, and came down Tuesday morning still in her scrubs. She and Douglas signed simple month-to-month agreements with the actual owner of the house, everything on paper, everything in daylight, rent into an account with my name on it, part of it set aside as a repair fund with Mom as the named decision-maker, because it's her home, whatever the deed says. Cole, the line cook, I did one better for. The restaurant I was about to join needed hands, and a cook who does 4 years of 6 a.m. prep without complaint is a cook I will always find room for. And that Tuesday evening, my mother walked to the bottom of the front staircase, the carpeted one, and put her hand on the banister Douglas had fixed 2 winters ago, and looked up toward the yellow room, and said, in the tone of a woman ordering in a restaurant she can well afford, "I think I'd like my room back now." Dana had it emptied by nightfall. She moved herself down the hall without being asked, and as she carried the last box out, she looked around the yellow room and shrugged. This one never suited me anyway. Too much sun in the morning. Too much sun in the morning. I laughed until my eyes stung. We moved Mom back up on the last Saturday of April, the 3 of us. Me, Douglas, Cole, hauling 4 years of a diminished life back up into the light. The cot stayed in the basement. Some furniture doesn't deserve a second act. The boxes marked Carol. Kitchen went back into the kitchen, her mixing bowls onto their old shelf, her church calendar back onto the fridge nail where the laminated guest schedule used to hang. I put that schedule in the recycling myself. It felt like plating the last dish of a very long service. We carried the singer up last and set it by the east window, exactly where it stood in 2019. A seamstress needs real light, Mom said. My own words from 7 years ago, coming back to me like a returned deposit. She ran her hand over the machine and stood in the yellow room in the afternoon sun, and didn't say anything else for a while, and neither did I. At the bottom of one of her book boxes, that same afternoon, I found an envelope, my name on it, Bella, in a hand I hadn't seen in 5 years. My father's blocky machinist print, all caps, the writing of a man who labeled things so they'd be found. He'd written it at Christmas 2019 and, being Edward Bird, never gotten around to sending a letter to a person he could just call. It was short. He thanked me for the house in 6 embarrassed lines. He said the maple tree needed cutting back and that he'd handle it in spring. And then, at the bottom, underlined once, "Look after your mother. Not with money, Bella. She's never once in her life been impressed by money." I read it standing in the yellow room, in the real light, and for the first time in this entire story, the person crying was me. It took my father 7 years and 1 unsent letter to teach me the only lesson in it that mattered. He'd seen everything coming, the counting of plates, the limits of a wire transfer, and he'd said it all in 2 sentences and mailed it to the future, general delivery. There was one debt left on the books. I transferred $24,000 into my mother's retirement account, and we had our only fight of the spring about it. She refused. I gave that willingly, Bella. I don't take money back. I let her finish. Then I used her own arithmetic against her, which is the only argument that has ever worked on Carol Bird. Mom, you've never owed anyone $1 in your life. Don't make me the first person who owes you $24,000 and never pays it back. She glared at me, then she laughed, the real one, the one from before, and let it stand. And then I asked for the notebook. She brought it down, and I turned past 48 entries in her hand, and on the next line, in mine, I wrote entry number 49, paid in full. You never owed anyone anything. Mom read it twice. Then she closed the notebook and carried it upstairs and filed it in the drawer of the singer, the deep one, where she keeps her best patterns. Things worth keeping, never worth repeating. On the 3rd of May, a Sunday, we visited Dad together, the first time we'd ever stood at his stone side by side. Mom wore the pearls, both of them, cleaned and rehung, the runaway one back with its mate. She talked to him the way she pays her bills, thoroughly, honestly, leaving nothing out. She told him about the renters and the cot and the notebook and the birthday, all of it plain, because Carol Bird does not launder a story even for the dead. She told him Judith had found a one-bedroom at a senior community and was moving on the 8th. She told him Vanessa had texted twice, once angry, once not, and that she hadn't decided anything yet. And then she straightened up and said the sentence I'd been waiting all spring to hear. And I decide when I see her now, Ed, where and for how long. Me. One syllable, 66 years in the making. As for me, I took the executive chef position at the Larkspur in Columbus, 20 minutes from Marigold Court, and worked my first service on the 8th of May with Cole on my line, calling back orders like he'd been born there. I sleep in the small bedroom now, the blue one, by choice. It turns out I like being down the hall. And I have a standing engagement that outranks every reservation in that restaurant. Sunday dinner at my mother's table. Not a wire transfer, a chair, every week. That's the fix for what was actually broken, and it took me 6 years and one basement to find it, so take it for free. Presents cannot be set to auto-pay. Which brings me to the second Sunday of May. Mother's Day. May 10th, 2026. I let myself in early with my new key. Mom had tied the old red ribbon onto it herself, so it knows whose it is. And I took down Dad's skillet and started breakfast. Eggs, potatoes, the good butter. Morning sun came through the east window upstairs, and I could hear it before I saw her. The singer, running steady, a long seam, confident. Then footsteps on the carpeted stairs, unhurried, hand light on the rail. And my mother came down from her room, her upstairs room, in her robe with her hair pinned, and sat at the head of her table. Her chair. Nobody assigned it. Nobody had to. Something smells wonderful, she said. Everything, Mom. Everything does now. She'd brought her sewing down with her. The blue silk I'd carried across the world, half transformed. She held it up to check the seam in the window light, and I saw what she was making. A chef's apron. Heavy-duty, double-stitched, built by a professional for a professional. On the chest pocket, embroidered in white, 2 letters, the second one still unfinished, IB. My sister once stood in the doorway of this house and told me the upstairs rooms were for people who pay. She was wrong about that the way she was wrong about everything. Not by a mile, but by one word, and the one word was the whole world. The upstairs rooms were never for people who pay. They're for people who stay.